Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Content Modeling Weekly course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, there's my email, marcelo@headlesscreator.com. Feel free to get a hold of me, send me any questions, feedback, any ideas you have. If you want me to content model anything in the future, I'm totally open to anything you like to do. For those of you in the US, welcome back from the long weekend. I know it's tough to get back into it, but you know what? We're going to do it. So as always, before we get started, I do want to tell you real quick, well, actually, before I tell you about Headless Creator, today what you're in for is I'm going to show you how to create a content model that supports unlimited forms, unlimited fields. You can have sections, so you can clump fields together. You can have pages, so you can present the form first with one page, then go on to the next page. I'll show you all that, and I'll show you some examples. But like always, now I'll say it, before we get started, I want to tell you real quick about headlesscreator.com. Go there, register. You know, I'm trying to hit 1,000 registered active users by the end of the year. And guess what? I'm like 42 away, I think, right now from hitting 1,000. So I'm way ahead of schedule, but you can help out by going to register if you find the content useful. With the free registration, you get tons of content. And not only will you have this version or this lesson on demand, but you also have a whole bunch of other lessons in the Content Modeling Weekly course. And you can see this one is lesson 42. 43 is coming up next week, and then many more will be added. But there's tons of lessons with all the mirror boards, so you can get your mirror boards over there, no problem at all. And you'll see when I jump in. Plus, you'll have access to a bunch of other stuff, including a bunch of focus on courses on a variety of headless CMSs, and there's many more coming online actually. The Discover Headless Tech, which has interviews, you'll have access to up here. You can go to the podcast and you can see 4 episodes and more coming, and then you can see our lessons are presented not just by me, but by a variety of presenters. So again, go register headlesscreator.com. That's it. I'm not going to market anymore. You know how this works. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and restart the intro because the on-demand version has absolutely no marketing. We'll jump right into the lesson. So I will see you in just 10 seconds. Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Content Modeling Weekly course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, there's my contact info, marcelo@headlesscreator.com. Send me an email with any questions, comments, feedback, ideas for content modeling. I'm all open. Today, we're going to talk about forms. How do you create forms in a Headless CMS? We're going to review some examples. After reviewing the examples, we'll talk about certain field types and what do we need to have in forms. We'll actually jump in and do the model in Miro. From there, we're going to go ahead and jump into Contentful in this case, but you can put this in any headless CMS that you use. In my case, I'm using Contentful here as the example. We'll jump in, look at what does the authoring experience look like? What does the content model look like in there, the authoring experience? Then we'll jump into GraphQL, run some queries to see what does the developer experience look like? What is the developer going to get? And then we'll go back and maybe add an extra type to show you how to extend this content model I'm about to give you and how to use it in other places within other content types. So with that said, let me show my screen here. There we go. And of course, we start out with a nice, fresh, clean content model here, right? Nothing here, no problem. All right, so before we jump in and look at how do we model this, let's look at 2 examples. There's many more examples. I just picked 2 that shows a little bit of variety, right? So I went to the Salesforce site and you have here a form. And here's the form. I'm not focusing on any of this stuff on the right because you can do that with landing pages, and I have a content model just for that. So just go into the Content Modeling Weekly course and check out how to create landing pages. But I'm focusing on the form. And in this form, you can see that this here, right here, is a form. Has a a title, a description, then it has fields, right? Input fields. Here's a country option pull down, a product interest, a button, maybe a label here. There's an error message because I didn't fill it out. That's very important. For example, if I go out of there, it says, hey, you need to enter a valid phone number. Also notice that even though it's a form, it has the first name and last name is separated into two fields, but it's separated into two columns. So if you think about this, this is a form that has one column with a first name and another column with a last name. And then below that column, there's a whole bunch of fields. Right, so if you're starting to think, I don't remember. I try to keep design out of the of a headless CMS, but layout is important sometimes. So really, what we're looking at is we're looking at here a couple of columns, and then below those two columns, you just have the fields, right? So that's that. Let's look at another one here, and okay, this one. Let me get it reset the link. Oh, you know what? I think we can go here to not login. We'll have to go to the register one. So let me get my link here and reset itself. Give me one quick second. And here's the link. There we go. Equifax. Perfect. There we go. We'll close this one. Okay. So here we are on that. I'm going to go back to my table of contents to make sure I'm covering everything. Okay, so in this form, what do we have? Well, we have a form, right? But notice that this form is divided into pages. There's the info page, the account page, and the verify page. In other words, there's 3 separate sections that you got to go from one to the other. That's part 1. And each page has a headline with some, description information. But below there, for each page, you have 2 sections. You have the personal information section, so that's one section. And then you have the current address section. That's another section. It has fields. And then you got buttons and stuff like that, right? Okay. So those are the 2 types of forms we're going to analyze and build a content model for. Of course, there are 100 of other kinds of forms that you can come up with, but this content model, I believe, will give you the flexibility to build all of those. So let's start by going to our content model here, and let's talk about field types. And of course, like every good cook show, I have a lot of stuff pre-done in the oven, right? So I'm going to bring it out of the oven right now. I'm going to paste it into here just because I don't want to waste your time with, typing stuff in. So let's talk about this here. I'm going to make this a little bit larger there because we're going to bring in field types. So this is going to be our field types. We know that every model, every form has some types of fields. So we're going to call this field types. Okay. So what are some of the field types? Well, if you look at here, you have these are inputs. But these are specialized. They're inputs, but they're specialized as in date. This one is a very specialized one, Social Security number here in the US, right? This is also specialized. It's a mobile number. And then you have more here. Again, this is a specialized field called state. There may be a specialized field called country. So what does that really mean? Well, if we go into the type, this isn't a content model, this part. This is just some field types, right, that we identified. Here are some examples. We have 3 types of inputs. We could have a single line input, a multi-line input, or a rich text field, right, where you allow people to type in bold and all that kind of stuff. Then you have a multi-select. And what I mean by that is basically you have options. So you can have a multi-select, which is a drop-down, a multi-select, which is a checkbox, or a multi-select, which is a radio. But in those, we can also make it not multiple select. We can say, look, here are all the options, but you can only select one. So we can add a property to a multi-select that says only allow one selection. But basically, a multi-select means multiple options. Okay, so we got that. Then, of course, we have a button. We have a date or a date with a time. We have a label. For example, if we go back here, this here, which is be considered a label. There is not an input. You just want to display a label there. So we want to allow the flexibility to be able to do that. Then we have a variety of special types. Instead of calling them inputs and having the user say, oh, validated as a phone, validated as this, We just want to create the content type where it allows them just to select, hey, here I want a phone input type. The front end, the delivery channel, is going to figure out how to display that, obviously, with the developer, right? Same with email, zip code, country, states. So if I say, hey, I want a country pull down, I don't want to create a multi-select dropdown and then enter every country that exists personally in the Headless CMS. I just want to say, hey, this field is going to be a country field. And then the front end will display all the values it needs, right? That's going to be all part of the development. Same with states, password, right? We need a password field and a social security number. Now, of course, you can add other types of specialty fields depending on what you're trying to do with, but this is a pretty good start here. So these are examples. So let's go ahead and start with the content modeling. So I'm going to go ahead and let's zoom out for a minute. And of course, I'm going to go to my pre-done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring on, actually, let's just do this. We'll put this here. I'm going to move this. Oops. There. Okay. And we're going to call this form. All right. So what do we have for form? I'm going to go ahead and start copying here because I want to type everything for you. Okay. Here we go. In a form, we're going to have two content types. The first one is the form. This is what creates that form, right? So we're going to create a form called Equifax registration form. And it's going to have a name, description, maybe a success message, an error message. I understand sometimes a success and error may be a URL. Right now, I'm trying to keep it simple. Remember, you can expand this content model to fit your needs. I'm just trying to give you a framework that you can start on and then build upon that. It's going to have a code ID because this code ID is where your developer is going to pull the form and will know how to display this form based on the delivery channel. Then it's going to have content. What do I mean by content? Why do I call it fields? Well, because there's more than just fields. There's content. What do I mean by content? Well, here we have a section which has basically two columns. And in each of those columns, you have a first name and last name. But then you have some more information here. In this one, we have a page first. That page has two sections. Each section has fields. So in the form, we're going to create a page, then we're going to create two sections, and in each section, we're going to create a field or multiple fields. And you're going to see how that works. So obviously, we're going to have content that's one-to-many. You got to have at least one. And we're going to inherit from, and you'll see what form section field dash star asterisk means, everything that's a field type, right? So you'll see that in just a second. But we're also going to allow to create sections. And what's in a section? Well, remember, we said a section could be, going back to here, a page, or it could be just a section like that. So there's two types, basically. And a page means, look, we're going to break this into its own entry form, and then they have to move forward into another page. Whereas a section means within here, just clump things together. That's all it means. Now, you may have a different type of section that you can just enhance the content model with in the future. But right now, just two types, section, page. We have the internal name, which basically that's just the name of the section or page for the authors. Then we have the label, we have a description. Again, we have a code ID just in case the developer needs to do something with the page or the section. And then what can you put in a section? Well, in a section, you can put another section, because remember, a section could be a page, which then includes another section